Okay, I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the Cordova Recreation and Park District at 6:27 p.m.
Thank you. So lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. I'd like to welcome up Kevin Lorraine from Beach at Deli at Cordova Golf Course.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic one nation under God, indivisible.
And Recreation Superintendent Chase Michelotti would like to say a few words.
Good evening, Chair Linebaugh and members of the board. Tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Kevin Lorraine, Beach Hut Deli owner and operator at Cordova Golf Course. Kevin grew up in Auburn, California. He has worked in the bar and restaurant business for 22 years, starting when he was 14 years old. Over the course of his career, he's worked in every job in the restaurant business. Kevin previously owned and operated Beach Hut Deli in Colfax, California for 7 years and sold that store in 2021. After some time off, Kevin was approached by Beach Hut Deli creator and current president, Troy Feist, for the opportunity to take over operations at Cordova Golf Course. Kevin agreed and dedicated himself to overhauling the concessionaire space, working tirelessly every day to transform the building into an incredibly hospitable space with a relaxed and welcoming beach vibe. In his spare time, Kevin enjoys vacations to Hawaii and playing with his 3 dogs, Butters, Peanut Butter, and Jersey. So the district is very excited to partner with Kevin, who has added a much needed amenity to our revitalized golf course. Thank you.
Okay, could I have a roll call, please?
Director Sloan,
Here.
Director Hansel,
Here.
Secretary Yearwood,
Here.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Here.
Chair Linebaugh.
Here. And now we're on item B, comments by the public on non-agenda items.
Members of the public may address the board on district topics not listed on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. It is a violation of state law for the board to discuss or take action on non-agenda items. Board members may only briefly ask clarifying questions or refer the matter to staff. And at this time, there are no requests for public.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item C, presentations.
Item C1, presentation by staff on the procedure for naming parks after people. This is an informative presentation only and no action is to be taken by the board of directors. And I'd like to welcome Administrative Assistant Andrew Saltmarsh to the podium.
Hello, I'm the administrative assistant for the park planning department. My name is Andrew Saltmarsh, and just give me a second to set up my presentation. Okay, so to begin, I just want to give a little background. So staff presented these items to the policy ad hoc committee, and we had a really good discussion, and that was on September 26th. And I want to begin by reminding the board that while the board approves policy, ultimately the general manager approves procedure. So this will be an information only item. I think the best way to begin this discussion is to review CRPD's existing policy for naming parks. So this is our naming policy. The key takeaway from this policy is that naming parks is a function of the board of directors. This is our policy that identifies the criteria for naming a park. The section highlighted in bold highlights the criteria for naming parks after people. This is a continuation of the policy from the previous slide. This section discusses the general timing principles, the general naming principles, as well as the ability to change the name of a park if it's in the best interest of the community. This is a continuation of the same policy, that this section allows for developers to recommend names for parks alongside CRPD staff and the board of directors. So we've talked about our policy for naming parks after people. Now let's discuss our procedure. So currently staff can recommend names alongside names recommended by developers. The names are presented to the board of directors either through a staff report and or a presentation, at which point the board will vote on the name at a regular board meeting. So in this process, there's not really a clear way for how an individual get a park named after them. So CRPD staff benchmarked a few local agencies on their processes for naming parks after people. We looked at Consumers CSD, the City of Roseville, and the City of Folsom. We found that all benchmark agencies followed a similar procedure. Granted, there are some nuances between, but generally this is how the process worked. It began with a call for names from the community, where residents can suggest a name, usually through an application. Those names are funneled through a naming committee who reviews the suggestions and makes recommendations to their governing board or council. Their board or council will strongly consider the recommendations of the committee when voting on a name. Based on the benchmarking of these other agencies, this is the procedure that CRPD staff recommends. On a biannual basis, or every 2 years, CRPD residents will be given the opportunity to suggest names for a park or facility through an application process. Names on the application will be vetted and reviewed through an ad hoc committee of 2 CRPD board members that are appointed by the chair. After reviewing the names, the ad hoc committee will generate 2 ranked lists of names. One list for large community parks and larger facilities, one list for neighborhood parks and smaller facilities. The board will vote to approve the list, which is then good for 2 years. So now that we have a list of names, what happens next? Well, first of all, a reminder that this procedure only applies to naming parks after people. Naming a park after something other than a person will follow CRPD's existing procedures that we discussed earlier in the presentation. So when a naming opportunity does arise, whenever naming a park or facility, the board will consider the list of names approved by the ad hoc committee. The list is also considered alongside the naming recommendations from CRPD staff and recommendations from developers. I just want to note that this process will apply to everyone, including the public, developers, and members of the board of directors. If anyone wants to put forth a suggestion, they would follow this application and vetting process. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Director Sloan?
Well, I really don't have any questions because we're going to report out on this item, so you can ask.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Director Danzel?
I don't see any questions.
Secretary Hayward?
I don't have any questions. I just thank you guys for taking the time to look into this. It's something that I asked for several times, so that's it.
And Vice Chair Reyes, are you gonna hold until your committee report?
Yes, Director Sloan, Director Sloan and myself were on the ad hoc.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I, just would comment that it seems like a common sense approach to me, a fair and transparent approach, so. Thank you. Okay, so now at this time, we're going to move on to item D, committee reports.
Thank you. Item D1 is a standing agenda item for the ad hoc committee, Parks, Facilities, and Recreation Optimized Plan stakeholder meetings, and reporting out is Director Danzel.
Good evening. So mine is under the optimized plan. I've only had one meeting since the last meeting. That's it. I slacked this month. I'm sorry. 13 last month was a little much. The one we had actually was just yesterday with BIA, discussing, it was probably one of the shortest meetings we had. Got some good feedback from them, no major complaints, no major concerns. Something we did hear from the developer is that would like to see passive parks. They don't want to see things. That's what they're hearing from their home buyers. Is they don't want to see things in parks. They just want grass. So it was very interesting to hear that comment, because when we've talked to stakeholders, if we don't have a playground nearby someplace, we hear about it. So I'd like to talk to the same homeowners. Other than that, like I said, it was a really short meeting. Not much was said. It was they asked basic questions. Our staff turned around. Ms. Laura Taylor asked if any of them had a crystal ball and could tell us when some of these homes were going to be built, and they've got the same crystal ball we have. And it's still cloudy. Nobody knows exactly what's going on, especially with the economy right now and everything else. So we just take everything one step at a time. And move forward.
Thank you, Director Danzel.
Item D2, standing committee meeting for district policies on September 26, 2022. And reporting out is Vice Chair Reyes and Director Sloan.
Director Sloan will start off, and I will continue.
So this was a Zoom meeting, and I've never had any printouts, so I had to take my own notes on this thing. And there was a lot of items that we discussed that day. And the one item that we just mentioned, we had a presentation about the naming of the park. That's, I thought that was I think that's a good thing we're heading into. But there was one that we talked about in specific was the memorial gifts to parks. That right now, if you're familiar with the Riviera East Park, it's where Steve Ebert's benches, Steve Ebert's. And there's a number of maybe 3 or maybe 4 total there. Or 3 or 4 memorial benches at that one park, and so they sort of had this. They had this feeling that we don't want one park to become a memorial park, so we had to come up with an idea of what per acre, how many benches would be feasible. And I think what they first talked about was, or how many memorial donations per acre is what we came up with. It didn't have to be just a bench; it could be something else, a plaque or something. But I think Secretary, Vice Chair Reyes and I were sort of leaning towards the 2 memorial donations per acre. And I think you mentioned the kickoff period being January 2023. This program that we're the 2-year program. Is that what we're going to call it? 2-year park naming program or whatever dedication program?
Clarification, it's actually the first 2 years of the application cycle, and then after the second year, we open it back up to the public for additional years.
Yeah. But I thought it was interesting because I asked some questions about how many parks that we have that are named after people. Some people are named after like a developer, but it's interesting to see what as we lead on to newer parks. I think that'd be kind of cool to have it named after people that people know. Another one of the things that we talked about. Yeah, I have this right. One of the things was that this is in the personal policy employee handbook amendments proposed. And one is the supervisors of employees that's in their family, that they can't be supervised by someone higher in the chain of command. So that was one thing that we discussed. I forget whether, I think, were you gonna take the rest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go for it.
Thank you, Director Sloan. The other items that we had on our agenda that we discussed on personnel policies, it was like draft proposed personnel policy amendments, but really I experienced it as being clearer in how they were going to, how they added more information on the policies to be clear about how it worked. And so there were the employment of relatives, exactly what Director Sloan was saying, see to it that they weren't going to be under any direct or even like anywhere else, or even a chain that might lead down to them, so that there could be straight fairness of supervision and all. They did talk about capacity pay, they talked about the sick leave accruals, conversion of sick leaves to separation, most of them clarification to the policies. Holidays, administrative leave, bereavement leave, they identified the immediate family members more clearly. And then regular part-time probational employees. So much of it was more definition, clearer writing down that even, there was a lot more that had to be in writing when they were communicating with, and they were very good. I think the personnel HR did a good job with explaining and showing why, and from all of it, it was very beneficial to the employee to know exactly what to expect. The fourth item that we discussed were board policies. And in that, they were talking about the board member elections again. They went to be more specific, the election of the board, vacancies and resignations. And one of the main thing that I said I'd take back to my board was a question that Chair Linebacker told me to really understand and make sure. And I will literally say that I have it here. It has to do with the ad hoc committee. It wasn't very clear as to whether the ad hoc committee had to be formed by an action and a vote and all confidence, but rather simply an ad hoc committee is supposed to be formed by the chairperson. So it says ad hoc committees consist exclusively of less than a quorum of the board to analyze and report to the board on temporary issues consisting of single or limited purposes and are dissolved when their assigned work has been completed. Ad hoc committee meetings are not subject to agenda postings because there is no quorum. Posting requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The chairperson of the board of directors may establish ad hoc committees as deemed necessary in carrying out the objectives and goals of the district. The chairperson may appoint members to ad hoc committees directly without majority vote of the board. And that's how we've always experienced it. So I was very pleased that that was clearly explained. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we move on to the last.
Thank you. Item D3 is for a standing committee meeting for School District 2x2 on October 19th, 2022. And reporting out is Vice Chair Reyes and Director Sloan.
Oh, Director Sloan.
Not before your.
Sure.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump to number two, Allstrom Park, Cordova Lane School. Let me have a. Well, we talked about that project and how. I don't know if you're aware, board members, but that project has been put on hold. It's stalled right now. And the Fulton Cordova Unified School District along with the Park District still had kind of in a fog, not knowing really the reason why. You all know that Dennis Lamantia passed away, and he was the last person that was on the committee making some last minute changes with Laura about the configuration of the ball field. And so right now we don't know which direction that's actually going to go in. So until we do, we'll have to report again on that possibility of this. I think what it came down to is that they really were looking at Dave Roberts Park to possibly, that's what they heard over there at Mitchell. To be a little league complex there, because they already have a junior field, but nobody talked to the school district, nobody talked to the park district. It's just kind of like someone heard, kind of hearsay of this right now. So one thing that we talked about. The next one was the Williamson Park. The relationship between Williamson Elementary School and Williamson Park property, and the fact we're gonna have, that's not gonna, we're gonna have species of plant life out there. And, that kids can be taught, and there might be, hopefully in the future, we have a connection, a partnership with Soil Farms, we have an herb garden or something that could work into the culinary part of that. The program to share with the schools and the parks, but we should have my notes. We also talked about the future. I mentioned. Peter Maroon mentioned that they're planning a beautification day out at Peterson Field. That they can get either the baseball team involved and go out there and pick weeds and get the kids more involved with upkeep of their field. Because as we head into spring, we'll be heading into the baseball season. And I'm gonna pass on to Director Vice Chair Reyes until I can figure out if I remember something.
Yes, I'm more than glad for you to have add on here. The meeting was this afternoon, so it was very nice for us to start the 2x2. There was, we definitely both districts experienced how we appreciated. They appreciated having board members there to be able to feel like, and for us to be there to give them the support, and knowing full well that we know what's happening and they have our support with moving along. One of the things, just to add to Director Sloan's Alstrom Park, the concern was it was more a matter of it just stalled all of a sudden. There was a lot of activity, there was a lot of research, there was a lot of outreach and all that, and then all of a sudden it stalled. So the concern was, do the people even know that it's not happening or so? And that it wasn't very clear why it was stalled. So both the school district and the park, had expressed the fact that there was a lot of time put into it, and so there was a little wonderment that it hasn't moved on. We did discuss CRPD optimized plan. We had Laura Taylor give us a report on it, a report on how well it went, that they had 14 outreach to the stakeholder meetings, which was awesome, and that they were very well attended, and that there was an online survey that is really important because it will add to the information they are gathering to come up with the optimized plan, which hopefully will be the plan for our next 10 years and will help us all be able to participate in building our parks, facilities, and recreation. She also did, which was really neat, it was an opportunity for Laura to say to the school district that this is what we're doing. It's our 10-year plan, and the school district wanted to know what they could do. And so Laura had asked them to get more people to fill out surveys. They really would like, there is a link on our crpd.com for the survey. And I suggest each and every one of us look, our families, our friends, our neighbors, have them look into it. It should be a simple survey to fill out, but it is very important for our optimized plan development. The other thing she did ask, which was exactly what this 2x2 helps with, she did ask if there was the projections or demographics that the school district had, that they would be able to share with us of what they see their next 10 years are gonna look like. So that then we are a lot more aware of the mix of our population, residency, families, etc. I forgot to mention, we did have a school board member there, Chris Clark. And we were expecting Ed Short, but he wasn't able to join us. Superintendent Kelligan was there, which was great, and her staff. So it was a very good meeting. We all looked forward to it, and we're very pleased that it was happening. And hopefully, we will see whether it's a school board, the school, or our district. If there's any need, could go ahead and initiate another and schedule another. At this time, we're good. With regards to the other agenda items, they talked about CRPD staff provided a very good report on the staff and board donation program that supports Folsom Cordova Unified School District unhoused students and families. They were very pleased that this partnership was going. They were very happy that Cordova Rec and Park District was working with them, and they're hoping that this goes on for a longer period of time here. We also talked about the Cordova and Folsom School District Memorandum of Understanding for facility use, in particular the community pool, which seemed to, obviously, we've had the pool only a year and a half, so a whole summer and a half. So, but it's going well, and they seem to know that there will be certain things that hopefully every November, did I hear? Every November, the staff will get together to see if there's any need to amend, to revise, to explain, to change exhibit information. That's what I read. And I believe, if I can add to the Williamson Park, it was really exciting because Dr. Kaligian was talking about, we brought up the information about the Williamson Park and history, and that the Williamson School was very connected to it, to the family. And so it was important for them to know that the west side, which is, if you're facing it, the left side, the west side was under construction and has already begun, but that the east side was hopefully something that between the district, the school district and park district, we can bring some grants or funds together to be able to develop that part, and also to find a way by which the Williamson's Elementary School children can participate in the and yeah, and so Director Sloan.
Yeah, I want to add on to that too, that you mentioned possibly an Earth Day Zach Tree Foundation tree planting, that maybe we would invite the elementary school kids over to help, kind of like that. That would be a good, where they can come in hands-on and learn about planting trees. Another thing about the pool I thought was exciting, and I hope it grows from this point, from just oh, wow, that's a good idea, but we don't have funding for it. It's water polo, so at the pool, so we have the ability to put some nets up and teach the kids, or some kids, or one kid. I don't care, there's one kid, give them a ball, throw it in the net, I just want to get that out there, that we have that ability, and hopefully in the future, we see some type of, whether it's just a club, where people are, I don't know, was it 8-on-8 when they play that game? I don't know. No? I don't either. Never played it, I'd like to play it. The board of directors will challenge the other team, I like that. And I think the talks about we need bleachers out there was important, and maybe they heard that, and possibly they could maybe have an idea how we could achieve that goal.
You guys all-
Okay, thank you. You know, it struck me, I mean, that was a great report. That, I hope this school 2x2 really continues, because there was a lot of important things you guys had to discuss, so thank you very much. We're gonna move on to the consent calendar now.
Thank you. The consent calendar items are considered administratively routine and will be acted upon in one motion unless several action on a specific item is necessary. The chairperson will consider any requests for discussion on the items prior to approval of the consent calendar. This evening, we have 8 items for your consideration. On item E7, a typo has been corrected on the contract.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any discussion items or want to pull an item? Well, I do. I would like to pull item E4 for a separate discussion. Other than that, can we have a motion for the other consent items?
Chair Lineback, I will move that we approve consent items E1, E2, E3, E5, E6, E7, and E8.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
Second.
Thank you, Director Danville. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Director Danzel,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback.
Aye. Thank you. So the reason I wanted to pull item E4 is, believe it or not, for the ad hoc policy. Because as I was reading it, it was quite clear that the meetings don't have to be agendized. But what wasn't clear to me was having an ad hoc appointment being made, does that particular function have to be agendized? There is a part on the standing agenda, you know, it's a little further on, that's for board officers' appointments and elections. And is it the board's pleasure that if there's going to be an ad hoc appointment made, that the chair indicate that that should be on the agenda? Or can that simply pass to a standing item that doesn't appear separately on the agenda underneath the category of appointments? That was my question. Now, I myself have no particular preference. It's just that I was reading it and saying, but does that mean that the appointment should be on the agenda? Does anybody have an opinion or?
So you're saying it would, instead of like having its own separate item, it would fall under like H1 on this agenda, under board off move appointments.
Exactly. So it's here now,
It's on
and
the agenda, it's
it may not be called out that an appointment is going to be made. Or it could be, as this is here, and rightfully so, because this particular question hadn't been settled in the policy, so it's on the agenda. And I'm not opposed to the fact that there's going to be an appointment to be on the agenda. But that's something for all of us to decide, because it's a board policy.
What if I'm thinking of a situation that we may be dealing with, let's say, an action item or so. And the chair at that time, it was decided by the board that an ad hoc committee was going to be formed to look into something that pertained to them. Would that be, and would the chair be able to then make the appointment of the ad hoc committee right there and then, even if it's not agendized, if it's not in, so that's the only other thing that I was thinking, that at that moment, you may need, the chair may need to make an appointment. And might say, well, gee, I can't make my appointment now because it's not.
That's precisely, you know,
Yeah.
the sort of conundrum, if you will.
Yeah. So,
Director Danzel, you want to?
My thought on that is, agreeing with Director or Vice Chair Reyes, is that maybe that just needs to be put in. If we know that there's a possibility of an ad hoc, then that needs to be a subsection of that, just another bullet point or another letter or number or whatever it happens to be, but an extra part. If we don't have to use it, we don't have to use it. We have that happen all the time. And here we decide that we've got, an appointment that needs to be made, we decide as a board, we don't need to make that appointment for a committee or something, or,
And we say none.
LAFCO or something like that, we decide we don't want to put any money in that, it's on the agenda, we decide we're not gonna use it, so I don't see a problem keeping it on the agenda if we have a possibility that there could be an ad-hoc, that's the way I look at it.
So under board of directors items, we would just have a sort of a standard ad hoc appointments, and that would be the place they would be made if they were gonna
Yeah,
be made.
say yes,
Yeah.
none. Because even here where I guess it says ad hoc committee meetings are not subject to agenda posting requirements. So in other words, if we still
Well,
have
it's
that,
just meetings are subject to it.
so if we have that need.
Mhm.
I mean, if we had this standing thing for appointments and all that, and the need is still up there, yes, and then if not, none.
Yeah.
No appointments then.
So putting, as I understand it, then for the staff, just having a part of the agenda underneath appointments for ad hoc appointments, and then if an ad hoc appointment is to be made, that's when it would happen. Without a specific definition of an ad hoc, like here, I am gonna be appointing an ad hoc committee later on in this meeting, but it's specified what its purpose is going to be. So going forward, maybe just have ad hoc appointments be just a line item, but without the specificity, and then if no appointments are to be made, none are made.
So, just so I'm clear.
Yeah.
So for the way it's set up tonight, as an example, you would be having an appointment, say it would be H2, and then it would be ad hoc, and then there would be no description under that ad hoc, and it could be up to the leisure of the chair to whether they're gonna do an ad hoc committee or not.
Well, under H1, it already says appointments.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just change H1 to board officers, ad hoc appointments. No, because would that work? Do we ever make appointments under there that are ad hoc?
We do, sometimes we appoint people to be nominated for boards for like CRPD
I see,
or
yeah.
things like that.
So we need to add ad hoc to that.
Okay, so add it to after elections ad hoc,
Yeah,
okay,
That's all.
and then just not be specific under the description like an A.
Yeah.
And then whether you do or you don't, it's
Mhm.
just gonna be under that section going
Mhm,
forward.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's
Would you
fine.
still sometimes, if you know you're gonna do one, still list it, or just not list it all?
I mean, that's kind of the reason to list it is sort of the idea of transparency, so people know what's coming.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, I think so.
But if we see there's like we say, we're gonna put them there, if we know
If
what's
we
coming.
know,
But
yeah,
if something just falls in our lap, we have to address it rather quickly, we have the flexibility to do it,
yeah.
Right there.
for lack of a better word, on the fly, because we
Okay.
need to do it.
So, for the purposes of the policy itself, because the policy itself is gonna have to be amended a little bit, right, yes,
So what I was thinking of is with my appointment to the optimized plan, you were gonna do that one night, but because it wasn't on the agenda, we had to push it off a whole another month. So
We
that would
did,
be the
yeah.
scenario, the most recent scenario where we had that happen. Because we had to push it off a whole another month because we had to have a special meeting to, appoint me at that point. So.
And also at that time, I do remember, we had to. We had to.
Well, it also had to be a
vote on it,
nomination.
which should be the case.
Right,
Should
right.
be the case.
yeah, and that's all covered, I think, under this new policy, so, maybe the policy needs to be amended to say that, ad hoc appointments, and known ad hoc appointments will appear on the agenda. However, the chair has the discretion to appoint ad hoc committees during a meeting without prior notice. Something like that for the policy. I'm looking at the policy wonk over there, Andrea, does that sound good?
Well, I mean, I can probably, help.
Okay.
And I think we qualify by no ad hocs, it kind of negates what Michael was saying in terms of if we're aware of an ad hoc, it should be listed. If there is an option for us to appoint something through an ad hoc, similar to what Brian was saying, we want to extend that flexibility inside the policy. So I would probably add some flexibility to the language of the policy that allows us to do it without noticing it formally, if in case we need to do so.
Yeah.
So we can amend it in those flexible terms and language. We probably not on the fly right here, right now,
Right.
but we could go back to the staff quickly and look to adjust that to have some more flexibility in that section of the policy.
Okay.
That's
Should it say something to the effect of, you know, they'll be agendized unless it's determined after the agenda's been posted, there's an urgent need or something like that.
or I mean, what we're
Time
doing,
sensitive issue that needs to be addressed.
yeah, what we're doing.
Hold this for now.
That's what I
I
was just
think
gonna-
we need to vote on it. It stands, it is on the agenda. And then it's gonna need to be amended. That way the ad hoc appointment can be made tonight that, you know, I was planning on making. But for future ad hoc appointments, amending the policy, for the flexibility.
So would that be something that we would look to do at the next round of policy committee review, or would we want to do that more urgently off of this?
Right now the policy doesn't address it, so I think it's not wrong if it doesn't appear on the agenda in advance, right? Because the policy doesn't require it to appear on the agenda. So I think it can probably wait for the next policy.
And we'll go ahead and change the header like you suggested to have added to the list of board officers, appointments, elections, and ad hoc.
Mhm.
And then we can list it if we know it. If we don't, then we can still go ahead and have that flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
So with that in its place, Chair Lineback, I move that we approve consent calendar 4.
thank you, Vice Chair Reyes and Director Sloan. Roll call vote, please.
Director Sloan?
Aye.
Director Hansel?
Aye.
Secretary Eurlin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye. Okay, the next item on our agenda is F, public hearings, of which there are none. So we will move to G, the regular calendar item.
Thank you. Item G1 is review the compensation report and approve a salary wage range adjustment and implementation plan for all full-time and part-time positions as presented by Ralph Anderson and Associates. This item is continued from the August 17, 2022 regular board meeting. And I'd like to welcome Vice President Doug Johnson to the podium.
Good evening. I'm in the right spot here. So I don't know if I need to share my screen to do the presentation.
Yes.
Looks like I do. Okay, so I'm going to do that real quick. I'm so close. Okay, I think I have it. It's here we go. All right, so the board obviously knows I've talked with you before on this topic, so I will cover some of the highlights, but also try and keep the time brief and entertain any questions you have. So as we talked about before, the compensation study that was conducted by our firm is a process that organizations go through in order to provide data that informs the decision makers. So those decision makers would be your general manager, your executive management team, and this board. So the reason we collect data is so we're not guessing. We're not taking our own opinions. We're relying on market data to inform the organization about what wages are being paid, similar types of jobs out in other competing organizations. The objective is to make sure that the organization, the district in this case, can satisfy its ability to recruit and retain employees. As I told you before, and I don't think I need to tell you again, right now, it's a very competitive labor market. It's a tight market, as we call it, meaning that when you have a job opening, it's hard to actually hire people that are qualified for the job. You potentially are also having turnover that's maybe more than what you've had in the past. So measuring the marketplace, understanding what's happening in the market, and then using that data hopefully helps in terms of getting information that helps you make strategic decisions with respect to compensation. This is something organizations do, cities do it, special districts do it, private employers do this, so it's a regular part of updating your compensation plan. So this chart identifies the survey agencies. This is the chart that we discussed with you last February and sought approval for, and so we did get approval before we did the market survey. The set of agencies, the mix that's trying to combine several elements. First and foremost, we're trying to find other agencies that have similar jobs. So that means looking at special districts, looking at city government, the parks departments, parks and rec departments in those, county government, again, focusing on parks and recs within those operations. Those are the three groups of agencies that this organization competes with and where these similar jobs will exist. Secondly, we can look to some degree at size. There's going to be some issues when we compare it to a city or a county, because obviously as a whole entity, they're much, much larger. They have police and fire services, potentially a lot of other competing services, but their parks and rec departments are going to have jobs that are similar to what this organization provides in terms of services as a special district. So we can look at those operations. Obviously for the special districts, some of them vary. This has a fire operation, so they're going to have more than just parks and rec. Some of these other agencies may not have all the services you do. Some of them may be in different modes of growth. We can look at how many parks they have today or whether they have a golf course or not, but we won't know what that'll look like a year or two from now. So this is an effort to look at all the options, not include the super small agencies, make sure we're including special districts that are going to have comparable jobs, and also importantly, touch the cities and counties that are immersed in the Sacramento region marketplace, because they are agencies you are competing with for all jobs, whether it be an accountant, a parks maintenance worker, a recreation supervisor or coordinator. Those are agencies that have comparable types of jobs. So the information in this table is some metrics that we use to ultimately take a list of 60 or 70 potential agencies and narrow it down to the specific survey agencies that we sought approval last February. So once we have these agencies and we're collecting data, the next objective is to understand where do you want to position your compensation plan. So the idea is if we have 15, 17, 18 agencies or however many data points, do you want to be in the middle of that market? And that's what most organizations actually seek. They look for some sort of middle market position, or do you want to be slightly above that or slightly below that? That's really what the decision-making process revolves around. So 50th percentile or median is the target that most agencies look at. We can also look at that in terms of, do we want to be slightly above 105% or 5% above median? Or we can look at it the reverse and say, do you want to be slightly below 95% or 5% below median? The reason we're providing options is for a couple of reasons. One is it is dependent in terms of your recruitment retention and how aggressive you need to be to compete in the labor market. So if you need to be less aggressive, 95%. If you need to be more aggressive, 105%. Or again, we could use 100%, which is the middle. It also is a consideration in terms of cost. If you are below market now, we have to quantify, which I'll get to, the difference between paying at median, slightly above median, or slightly below median. So certainly affordability is a factor that you have to consider as you make this decision. And again, trying to meet your recruitment and retention needs. So this chart is a summary of the data. It's a way of taking all of the job titles that we surveyed and breaking it into a chart that doesn't include titles, but gives you kind of a sense for the overall trends in the survey. So if we look at that center shaded area, that center line, that would represent the median or 50th percentile of the market. And this is comparing a pay range maximum of your agency to the pay range maximums, the full earning potential in the survey agencies. So if we look at this chart, we can see we've got a couple bars, one with 3 jobs and one with 4 jobs in the exact middle. So we basically have 3 jobs that are within 5% below median and 4 job titles that are within 5% above. I'll quickly dispense, we only have 1 job that was more than 5% above median. That's shown by that bar that shows 5 to 10%, that bar area. most of the jobs we surveyed are more than 5% below median. So going left to right, we had 3 job titles that were from 5 to 10% below median. And then we had 11 job titles that were 10 to 15% below median. And then we had 4 job titles that were 15 to 20%. And finally, we had 17 job titles that were more than 20% below median. So that's something that can occur. Some organizations, when they do a comprehensive survey like this, and haven't done it, within the last 3 or 4 years, your job titles and the values associated with that. Again, looking at accountants, looking at an HR manager, looking at a maintenance worker, a fleet mechanic, recreation supervisor, all of those jobs will have different values, part of which is based on supply and demand for those skill sets, roles, and responsibilities. So by doing a survey, you're able to see, here's our wage structure and the wages we have for our job titles, how do they compare? And so that's what's causing this difference. Now, we can talk about this overall in terms of kind of grinding this down to an average, but because we have so many jobs that are specific increments different, we actually want to take this information and translate it into an updated compensation plan, which we have. So before I talk about that, I did want to talk about the timing of the survey. So this survey data was collected in May 2022. So what that represents technically, depending on how you look at whether it's a fiscal year or calendar year, that's the time period that's essentially a 2021-22 fiscal year, which includes salary changes that occurred July 1, 2021 through June of this year, and changes that might have occurred in January or other months in between. But July 1 and January 1 are kind of the 2 most common times a year where public agencies update or change their compensation plan. So it is the 21-22 fiscal year. So the deviations, the median, market median deviations that we've identified that I just showed in the prior chart, this chart here, all of those represent deviations for that fiscal year. What that means is we are now in a new fiscal year, right? So it's now 22-23. So if I were to survey these agencies again, probably 90% of them have made changes since we did the survey in May. So there's that market movement occurring. You also have considered, and I don't know if you've adopted yet, but will adopt a cost of living or a 2022-23 wage adjustment, whether that happens now or January, it doesn't matter. But it's happening sometime in this 2022 to 2023 fiscal year window. So what that means is the deviations that we have exist kind of standalone. Any cost of living adjustment you give would need to occur on top of these market deviations. Again, that's catching you up to what's happening now and moving forward through next June. So I talked before about how we translate that market data. This is just kind of a way of talking about it using generic titles. So if you have a series of job classifications, and I'm using widget maker as an example here. So we can take our widget maker and survey it, get a good data point for that, plug that into your salary structure, and then that becomes the basis by which we say, here's your old salary range for the widget maker. Now here's your new salary range based on the survey we did. We can then slot related jobs. We can take your apprentice or lower level entry widget maker and set that 15% below that widget maker. We can take a lead level and set it 10% above the widget maker. We can take a supervisor, set that 15% above. We can even actually go further than that, but we often will end up using a benchmark at the manager level. So when you get to the manager level, you can either look down and say we want it to be at least 20% above the highest subordinate, or we can look at a market data point and determine the wage. You can do either or, and most organizations will look at both and do whatever is higher in order to be competitive with the market, but also make sure you have no compaction in your structure. So we did this process to take all those market data points and translate them into all of your job titles. And that way, the whole compensation plan that we're recommending is anchored to market data, but you're able to preserve that unique internal structure you have in terms of multiple levels you might have in some cases, supervisors, superintendent, manager levels that you have within your organization. So last thing to talk about is implementation. Up to this point, what I'm talking about is adjusting the pay range. So by adjusting the pay range, we also potentially impact employees. So this is shown visually on this chart here. I show an old range and a new range, and it's not important what that difference is. It could be 5%, could be 10%, could be 15%. What's important to show is that as long as the new range kind of overlaps the old range, you can move an employee from the old range to the new range at a fairly minimal cost. It's really a matter of taking whatever their salary is at their current step and the current range, and then rounding them into the nearest next higher step, so we don't do a pay decrease, but move them over into the new range at the nearest higher step. And what ends up happening is you end up taking that new pay range structure and allowing future step increases to occur for that position. So what we're doing is realigning the job to a market-based pay range, and then you're growing into that pay range by individual step increases by employees. Now, sometimes employees look at that and they might wince a bit because they say, well, I'm currently at step 4, I'm currently at step 5, I should go to step 4 and step 5 in the new range. The reality is that that's very expensive. Most organizations don't do that. And frankly, most organizations don't have the philosophy of doing that. They don't look at a step relationship as something earned on a permanent basis. They look at a pay range that's managed. And if you adjust the pay range, your obligation is to move the employee into that pay range and allow for step increases in the future to essentially cover that implementation component. So we've costed out both of these. So we did look at what a full adjustment would look like. And then we've also looked at what this nearest dollar would look like. And so I want to show those charts. So if you were to take this full study, the market-based increases and then the kind of internal ties, if you were to take this information and implement it all at once, pick a date, whether that's January 1 or some other date, the cost is shown here, and we're doing it for all 3 of your market position options. So I think to consider this, you're looking at half a year. So that's why I have a 6-month cost in here. So if you were to do a 6-month cost for median, I'll start in the middle, that's $421,000 and change. That's a permanent adjustment in base wages. And then there's some additional costs that would be tied to benefits. So you have some benefits that are percentage based that would also go up. And then we can look at 95% of median, something that's less than median. That would be $294,970 in cost if you did it all at once for a 6-month cost. And then 105% of median would be $562,327 for that particular option. As I said, organizations don't do this. It's a lot of an expense to handle in 1 year. So I mentioned the nearest dollar. If we take this same, I'll go back to that next chart. If we take these same options and look at nearest dollar, what's happening is we're able to absorb those costs again by doing future step increases. So year 1 cost with nearest dollar are considerably less. So if we look again at the 6 months cost, 143,000 and change for median, 87, almost 88,000 in terms of the 95% of median, and then 219, actually 220,000 if you round up for the 105% of median. So those would all be first year costs, which are obviously considerably less. What we do have to consider though is there are year 2 costs. So if we look at full implementation, your year 2 costs, and looking at this on an annual basis, is essentially the cost per step increases. So these are actually already in your budget to some degree, meaning without our study, you have step increases that are somewhere in your budget being accounted for, either because you budget at the maximum step. So that means that each year your budget is carrying over, you actually have cost savings because not everybody's paid at that amount, but you have that component built into your budget. So this is going to increase that because the range is going up, but some of this cost is accounted for in your current budget. When we do a nearest dollar implementation, because there's essentially an effect of employees sliding down in the ranges, employees that are currently at step 4 or 5, and they're sliding down to 2 or 3, you have more of a second year cost. Because you have more step increases that will occur in year 2 of implementation than you would have if we didn't implement the study. So this shows you those costs, and they're all roughly about $200,000, $200,000 to $215,000. You can see that it's a little bit different based on the option, but really what we're talking about here is not so much the magnitude of the option, but kind of that second year cost of step increases. That's why the numbers are so similar. So certainly we do expect there to be more expense with the 105% of median and lower expense at 95% median. So the requested board action tonight, and this is I think in the staff report, is to pick a market position, whether it's 100% of median, 105%, 95%, we give you those 3 options, and then adopt an implementation plan, either full implementation or the nearest dollar implementation, which again is much lower year 1 costs and then builds those costs essentially through future step increases. And with that, I'm happy to answer the questions.
Director Sloan?
I'm gonna be honest with you, this is very overwhelming for me to hear all these numbers and have this and the percentages. I'm actually going to defer to my other board directors And I definitely want to hear what Chair Lineback has to say, because I remember her comments at our work session were about having to do with what they were, some of the agencies that they were compared at were higher budgets, much larger than ours, and so I want to see if that threw things off a little bit, whether the balance wasn't correct. So I'll go to
So, Mr. Johnson, this is what, third time we've seen you? And it's getting clearer every time. I'm starting to understand it. I wish the biggest thing for me that threw me off the first time is the 95, 100. And if you would have come out day one and said median, 5% under, 5% over, probably would have gotten it day one. That's me. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that's where I sit. I know your world is different than my world looking at numbers, and so your industry does it that way. I understand that. Like I said, it's definitely getting clearer. I have an idea where I'd like to go. I'm gonna leave that until after the rest of the board speaks. But thank you very much for your time. Like I said, after the third time, it's getting clearer. So thank you.
Secretary Yearwood.
I don't know, I'd like a fourth time. No. Less of a different topic or something. Yeah, third time's a charm, I like that. So. I think we talked a little bit about this and so we're looking straight at, pay. When it comes to like other benefits and things like that, we talk about overall compensation for employees. And this may not be a question for you, but where do we fall compared to these other agencies in our compensation for our employees when it comes to cost of medical and things like that? And are we more generous? Are we on par with the other agencies?
So we did look at that. I didn't have a slide on it. So we did a total compensation analysis, and there's kind of two parts to that. The first part is we look at all these elements of benefits. You have cash benefits like longevity pay or employer paid deferred compensation. You have insurance benefits, which is the medical, dental, and vision are the most common ones there. You also have retirement costs that we could look at if we want to go that route as well. All of them present some different challenges in terms of, first off, getting an apples to apples comparison. But setting that aside, what we first look at is, let's take our market snapshot using just base salary and see kind of on average where you're at. So we did that. Then we add in all your benefits and we add in all the benefits of the market, and then we retake that snapshot. And the objective is, do benefits improve your market position, or do you actually lose ground based on your benefits? And the answer to that is, it did improve your market position, but only in one category, and that is in your insurance benefit. And your insurance benefit in terms of the dollars that you pay towards an employee insurance benefit. And we look at essentially employee plus two, or what's called family level benefit, agency to agency, because that's the only way we can account for what an agency potentially will pay. And when we do that, your cost is higher. Now, it could be for a couple reasons, or 3 reasons. One is you could have some different level of health insurance benefit that you're providing employees. Some of these agencies have 5 or 6 or 7 plans that employees can choose from. Other agencies may not have as many options, so that can account for a difference. It could be that you're paying 100% of the premium. Some agencies do that, less and less do that. Most organizations try and do some sort of sharing, whether that's by agreement or otherwise, and that's usually happening through a meet and confer process when you have unions involved. So that adds that kind of layer of complexity, but that could be a difference. The last thing is, you're a small employer. So under 100 employees in the insurance world is different than over 100 employees. So that gets into things that I'm not prepared to speak to, but would be, options and avenues that your broker would be providing. And it's just my experience working with organizations when you're under that threshold, that sometimes the choice in health insurance that you can provide, the costing and the way we look at that is just not going to easily translate to the market. So all that's to say, we can certainly quantify a dollar, kind of a percent or a dollar gain due to benefits, but I would think most organizations would look at that in only one of 2 ways. Either they would say, that's great, we're glad we're not less than the market, we're okay if we're a little bit above, we're glad that our insurance is strong. Or if they don't agree with that, they would seek some sort of kind of directed future cost sharing type of mechanism so that the cost that the employer bears would go down, if that's even possible. So that would be the avenues you look at. It would not be an instance where we would take that difference and quantify it in how we're setting salaries. If you had a cash benefit that was doing that, that's an easier conversation. But in an insurance benefit, you're talking about a fixed cost, which is a different percentage for your CFO versus a grounds worker, right? So the dollar cost is the same, but it's a different percentage based on a low paying or higher paying employee. And so it complicates how you factor that in. It's better to say, we've identified this difference, and then the organization can then determine on some future timeline whether any adjustment needs to be made to that.
So I understood you correctly. Everything else is pretty similar.
Correct.
Medical, we're a little more generous with medical, but.
Correct, which could be structural due to being a small employer under, sorry.
I used to work. I have another question, but I don't know if that's for you. Will we have more discussion after this presentation is over, or?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Like, like Director Danzel, it gets clearer and clearer. I am one who understands the need for, obviously we've never had this compensation study. And we are aware that, there's competition out there. And I do understand the need to bring up our abilities, to be able to get good and keep good, competent employees. So, as I see if I'm understanding this correctly, the recommended move was, I'm thinking more from my point of view, understanding here as dollar or full. And I see that I believe staff had recommended as dollar so that we can move ourselves and still manage it.
Correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Well, I don't really have any questions about the work that you guys did, other than what you've already, heard from me about which agencies were picked to compare us to. And while I understand that the list was in a presentation to the board about this compensation study, and we simply approved it through that mechanism, I myself am not happy, shall we say, about the inclusion of very large entities. And you made a sort of a passing comment, make sure we didn't look at agencies that were too small. But apparently we had no problem looking at agencies that were too big. And when we looked at Sacramento County with a $3.4 billion budget, I can't even tell you exponentially how much bigger than us that is. And we could have gone to other districts that are, say, half our size, as opposed to counties that are hundreds more our size. And so I'm still, even though, yes, this was the list that was included in the approval to do the study, I just don't think it's the correct comparison. And yeah, I'm just not happy with it. We did 6 cities, 2 counties, and 5 park districts, aside from our own. And there are 13 recreation and park districts in Sacramento, and some of them are tiny. But if we're gonna say compare ourselves to, 8 entities, I think we can find park districts to compare ourselves to. And just having come from that world, this district is known as paying very well. And so I'm not on board that our staff is underpaid. And I am a huge proponent of fair pay. And that is why, you know, in our budget and finance meetings with in particular, when Vice Chair Reyes was on the committee with me, that we stipulated that the default position should be a COLA, not a COLA if we can afford it position. And we've approved any number of promotions or redefining positions and compensating them based on the actual tasks that these very fine employees perform. And I just don't think that comparing us to the county of Sacramento or the county of El Dorado Hills is painting a picture that is correct. I think it's skewed. And that's where I stand on this entire compensation study, to be frank. Are there any other, does anyone else want to weigh in on that or talk about something else?
Well, the only thing I would say to that is, we don't compete only with other park districts for employees. So we have to be competitive with these cities if we want to recruit and retain, you know, great staff. So I mean, I understand your concern with that, but I also understand that we're looking in a pool of people that are potential employees that can do something with the city of Sacramento and maybe their parks department or whatever. And if our recruiting department says we can't compete with them to get the highest quality candidates, we have to kind of figure something out with that. So I mean, I'm not as concerned about it as you are, because we don't only compete with other park districts for recruiting and retain staff.
I did want to mention something, if I can, that I didn't mention tonight, but I've mentioned before, is that when we've surveyed these agencies, we do understand that when you get to a large agency, that management jobs become particularly difficult to compare because the size and scope and scale is completely different. So when we're selecting these agencies, it's really with an understanding that they compete heavily on line jobs. So groundskeeper, recreation supervisor, coordinator, and a groundskeeper in Sacramento County, city of Sacramento, Roseville, Rockland is not going to be any different than what they're doing here. That's the same type of job. To the degree we're looking for data points for a CFO or higher level job, we're not going to look at that super level or that really large level. We're going to look at a level that's much more similar in terms of role, responsibility, and scope. And we would prefer to have agencies like the cities because they have an abundance of all these line positions that you have, where some of these special districts, and we did, if you recall in the February discussion, we did include all the special districts, and we talked about their budget, and we talked about metrics in terms of number of parks and so forth. And some of them only have, you know, maybe 15 positions or 15 job titles. So it's not that we couldn't compare, but we get so little data. And they may have a general manager that's both HR director, CFO, general manager, developer planner, all wrapped into one. They're just not going to have the jobs to compare. So it's not that we don't like small agencies or we're trying to narrow them out for some reason about, hey, it's that they just don't have the comparability of jobs. We might get 5 or 6 data points, whereas when we get to a certain size of special district, then we're getting matches for abundance of jobs. That way it's giving us productive measure in that. And so again, these cities, and again, while we showed total budgets, and their parks and rec department budgets, and some of these are going to be larger, some of them are going to be about the same. That's really the operation that we're focusing on, and then their finance department, IT department, HR departments, whatever job we can best measure, if they have one, they may not have one, best match to this organization's functions. That's how we approach this. So what we've done is to try and dilute or minimize any differences with respect to size. We can't change the fact that these agencies have large budgets. I'll just simply note again, as I've said to this board before, those agencies have to pay for police services, fire services, public works, capital infrastructure, roadways. Those are a lot of resources competing for dollars. And I guarantee that Parks and Rec in some communities might command a lot of dollars based on the community. And a lot of these agencies, they're lower on the totem pole in terms of budget. So just because the agency has a large budget doesn't mean there's a commensurate similarity in terms of the recreation and park functions in terms of size. And I think they are more like you if you were to take yourself and embed yourself in a city and then build a city with all those departments around you. your organization as a Parks and Rec department looks very much like all but maybe 2 or 3 of these cities in terms of size. And those large cities are in here because they compete, they're in your marketplace, they're just down the road. And I always say to boards, we do want to be concerned about size, but when they're in your backyard, it's hard not to look at them. And I'd look at the small districts, except they just don't have as many jobs. We try to use the districts that do have sufficient classifications, compensation structure, and are something where we can actually get some actions.
Yeah, but the small districts are there and they're hiring and they like coming to this district. And I mean, that's just a fact.
I agree with that last statement, because I remember at the work session, one of our employees took a pay cut to come here and work. And to me, that tells me this district really has a lot more to offer. And as I'm thinking about growth potential and what we offer out there, I think that we've got so much room to grow, and that's what being professionals coming out into the field. I think that's something that they're going to cherish, that capacity to grow. That's what I would say.
Well, this is an action item on this agenda. So barring any further discussion or questions, is there a motion to be made?
I did have one more question.
Okay, sure,
It
of
would
course.
be probably more for probably our staff. So again, one of the reasons when we talked about this before was we were talking about, we were maybe starting to struggle with getting more candidates, getting a nice pool of people. I mean, I would hate for us to pick a range that doesn't meet what's gonna eventually need. We're gonna need, you know, like say we think we pick 95, but in actuality, we probably really needed 100 to be as competitive as we can be. So I don't know if there's.
So I can have Andrea come up and talk about some of our more recent recruitments and kind of the pool of candidates and kind of the flow of which we're in the market at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely would like to report that probably in the last year especially, maybe the last couple of years, we're finding it more and more difficult to recruit staff. I will say that there are people who apply for our positions and they ask for more on the application. And we might schedule an interview with the person saying, hey, by the way, our schedule's on the website. The pay range that you're requesting is not available, and they decide not to interview for our positions. That is happening more and more frequently. I don't know that I can speak to any one percentage point that would make that much of a difference, you know, I can't, you know, I don't know specifically if 95 would be enough to have people apply more or recruit. Also, I think there are a lot of people who are waiting for the outcome today. There are a lot of jobs open where sometimes posting a job where someone's paying $1,000 more a month for the exact same title. Now, maybe the job is different, maybe that agency is different, maybe we're more fun. I like to think that we are, but you know, sometimes people don't make decisions based on that, especially not right now, I don't think. So I would say that we're probably receiving, I think recently we had a park maintenance position open and we received maybe, I'm going to estimate about 15 applicants when we used to get 80 to 100. And so looking back, we did get more applications. I can't tell you exactly what that is about. You know, I don't have that crystal ball either, but definitely having people tell us specifically that it doesn't pay enough and they're not interested in interviewing. And I'm also having positions that we're filling with great candidates. They come on, they stay for about a month. I think they're still looking, and then they're leaving us after about 30 days, and that's about 30, 60 days, and that's pretty expensive as well. So that is very recent, I would say, this trend. That's pretty much all I can share about that. But again, I don't know what that percentage should be, that will make a difference. I think any one of them would make a difference to those people who are on that list, at the far left side of that list, who haven't had salary adjustments recently. Any questions?
Is anyone going to make a motion?
So the question here now is, because of the way it's the review of the compensation, so I can't, I remember the motion before was to decide a salary wage adjustment.
So the motion, requested motion is on the back page of the staff report. And so it basically is a motion to decide on or nearest dollar.
Page 70 is the page that has the motion.
I mean, I'll do it, go ahead, Mr. Yu.
I move the board of directors approve salary range adjustment of 100% of median and a nearest dollar implementable plan for full-time and part-time positions as presented by Ralph Anderson and Associates.
Thank you, Director Danzel.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
No.
Director Danzel,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lineback,
No. Okay, well, it passes. 3-2.
All right, next we have special proceeding, Community Facilities District number 2018-01, Park Facilities and Services, annexation number 7, the Ranch Village 10. For item G2, adopt resolution 22/23-24, accepting the annexation of property located in a future annexation area to the Cordova Recreation and Park District Community Facilities District, number 2018-01, Park Facilities and Services, tax bill number 1. And I'd like to welcome Chief Financial Officer Matt Goodell to the podium.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board members. And so this is lucky number 7, annexation. We've gone through this 6 other times. And CFD 2018-01, our Park Facilities and Services, which was created in December 2018 in order to include all new development that shared the same park standards, the same level of service. All future applicants and property owners submit a unanimous approval form agreeing to that annexation and future levying of special taxes, which in this case, we did receive that executed form of a positive approval prior to this meeting. This specific development is the Ranch Village 10 and is estimated to contain about 69 single-family residential homes at build out, so not a lot. But the revenue generated will be approximately $31,700 per year to be allocated towards park maintenance services. With that said, there is an amendment to this annexation that's different. The developer has requested that parcel number 067242000090000 be removed from this process. There was 2 parcels. This one in particular is a 2.8 acre property that will be a detention basin, and so it will not be developed. Therefore, having it or not having it annexed in has no impact to the district, and so we would not be receiving any funding, nor is the district responsible for maintenance expenses of that parcel, the detention basin. I think the city of Rancho Cordova is going to end up owning it from this particular developer, and so again, we don't gain anything, we don't lose anything by having that parcel being part of the process. So only parcel number 067242000500000, which will be the property parcel that will have the 69 dwelling units, is being annexed in tonight. And so that's my presentation. I'm available for any questions, as is Brian Brown. I see that he's on there now through Zoom from Francisco and Associates. And lastly, if and when there is a motion, please state as amended because we're taking off that parcel from all the documents. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Director Sloan? No. Director Danzel? Secretary Yearwood? Vice Chair Reyes? No. And I don't have any questions or comments, so perhaps someone would like to make a motion as amended.
I'll move that we adopt resolution 22/23-24, accepting the annexation of property located in a future annexation area to the Cordova Recreation and Park District Community Facilities District number 2018-01, Park Facilities and Services, Tax Zone number 1 as amended.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes.
Second.
Thank you, Director Danzel. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan?
Aye.
Director Danzel?
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, item G3.
Item G3, approve the Arista Del Sol Neighborhood Turnkey Park Concept Plan and authorize the general manager to instruct Woodside Homes to proceed with the development and construction of the park. I'd like to welcome landscape architect Christina James to the podium.
Where'd you go?
That's why I did it from over here, not from the podium. No one needs to see my mug.
He just likes a dramatic entrance, I think.
That has not happened in my career. That was very embarrassing. I apologize. Oh, my goodness.
Can I see your fingernails, please?
They're clean. Clean today. For some reason this isn't popping up. I did, but it.
It's like she's going around the room.
The computer is using those four tabs.
And she is.
How to share the screen. Thank you, Rick. Okay, yeah, how do we share this? Can't find the share. There it is then.
Yeah. Okay.
The video is turned on.
It's like you're not eating it, so. You want,
Take 5.
yeah, I'm gonna take 5.
What's your break?
Yeah, we're gonna take a 10-minute break, so please come back at, well, 8.
Okay, all right, so now it's gonna. Why it's not playing? Here, let's do this. Exit and leave.
Okay, I'm reconvening the meeting at 8:10, and we're going to proceed with item G3 now.
Thank you. Item G3, approve the Arista del Sol neighborhood turnkey park concept plan and authorize the general manager to instruct Woodside Homes to proceed with the development and construction of the park. And I'd like to welcome landscape architect Christina James to the podium.
Thank you, Chair Lineback and members of the board. Tonight, staff is recommending that the board approve the concept plan for the Arista del Sol neighborhood turnkey park. This 2-acre park is located in the future Grant Lane Arista Community Park. You can see here from cursor is that's the new 17-acre community park that's currently being planned. And the park under discussion for tonight is right here. You can see to the north Labyrinth Park, it's part of the Gov 98 development, and then Cypress Grove there to the west, and Pyramid Peak to the east. Staff worked with the developers, landscape architect, Calendar Associates, and Dan Miller is here tonight in the audience. And also the developers representative, Michael LaFortune, is here in the audience, and they're available to answer any questions that might come up during tonight's presentation. Staff worked with developer and landscape architect to ensure the plan met with the park development agreement for Arista del Sol, also with CRPD standards, and with that the park was designed within the allowable budget. So to describe the concept plan here in front of you, this neighborhood park is a celebration of Northern California's diverse natural landscape. The park is divided into 3 zones: the Sierra Grove, Valley Field, and coastal planting, each representing a California ecoregion or ecozone. Starting at the east end of the park is the Sierra Grove, which would consist of a gently elevated berm covered with a grove of evergreen trees. A meandering walkway leads to a picnic and barbecue area in here, tucked into a clearing within the grove. Moving west, the bermed mound gently transitions to lower level ground. This vegetation would include plants native to the Central Valley region, such as valley oaks, western sycamore, or compatible low shrub groupings and ground cover. The topography continues to level to the valley field open lawn, which provides space for active and passive recreational use. Meadow planting, native perennial grasses, and California poppy accents frame views of the field from the streets bordering the park to the north and south. Another winding pathway here on the western side of the park separates the valley field from a coastal planting area. And as this name implies, the western edge of the park would include adapted species of coastal plants such as California lilac and rock rose. The park will include interpretive signage for visitors to learn about these California native plantings. CRPD staff and the park landscape architect are available to answer any questions the board might have about this proposed neighborhood turnkey park.
Thank you. Director Sloan, do you have any questions for?
Quicker is small, is that about the size of like Salmon Falls or whether? Show me what comparable park we have is 2 acres.
So Salmon Falls is even smaller.
Smaller than that.
But the comparable parks I would point you to are Pyramid Peak, which is about 2.1 acres, and so very similar in size and feel to Pyramid Peak and Cypress Grove.
And is that in proximity, are they those also similar closeness to a community park? The other parks are this small.
Yes, you can see from the map, they have sort of similar distance and scale to Labyrinth Park.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, I mean, so, because this is just gonna be an area where you can just go and just kind of relax. And have lunch kind of thing.
Right, sort of expansion of the residents' backyards.
Right. And when you say berm, so with a darker shaded green, is that a hillside and then it goes down and levels out?
Correct. So it wouldn't be steep topography, but gentle topography, kind of delineating these different areas.
Well, looking at that, that's a bench, table, correct?
Correct. There's a table and then barbecue. And then the 3-bin receptacle that we're required now to have with compost, recycle, and trash.
Right. Thank you.
Director Denzel?
I actually like this park. It's, you know, a nice passive park, you know. Play frisbee in it, you know, do something, you know, kick a soccer ball, throw, you know, play catch. Do things like that without that, you know, major thing. And like Christina said, it's that extension in the backyard. I do like the way it transitions through California, basically, from east to west. So I definitely like that. It was well thought out. That's all I have.
Secretary Yearwood?
Yeah, I agree. I really like the, kind of like a snapshot of the state, you know, the Sierras, the valley, the coastal, it's really cool. Kudos who came up with that. But other than that, looks great to me. What do you think?
That's it for me. Can do my backyard when I was planning this.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Yes, you know, it's a small park, so, you know, obviously in some sense, I see you've got 2 benches. Am I right?
Yes.
2 benches, is there a bike rack there?
Yeah, I think like, yeah.
Okay. So. Okay, so the pathways will allow for bicycles. How wide are those pathways?
6 feet.
I remember, Jayla, was it in, Primrose Park where we, or no, I think it might have been another one, where we were having, a little request to have the pathway a little bit wider? Where was that? Because they said the bicycles were coming, the walkers couldn't walk through. But I guess 6 feet is the norm, the standard.
That's our standard. So, and again, we really work to fit this park within the available budget.
So moms were pushing stroller, get on it.
Yeah, 6 feet is the width that allows for 2 people to walk next to each other.
Okay.
Generally.
Just in the lower right hand corner, little white kind of a ground covering, is that something, it's not, what is that, something different than the shrub?
Ground cover.
So it would be a planting that one would find in the Sierra ecoregion. And at this point, we haven't detailed out the planting plan. But it's just to indicate that it wouldn't be, this area wouldn't be a solid block of mulch. There would be some understory there. And ground cover not high. Our standard is, you know, 3 feet lower shrubs.
It's holiday. And the creepy.
I was just kind of wondering, I know it's small, but what about just a little play structure?
Well, so we, this park, you know, we had an available budget and really struggled to come up with the plan before you. And play structure would not fit within the budget. So what we're providing are the basic park amenities that the residents can enjoy. I mean, there's really no available funding for a play structure.
Sure.
Yeah, well, maybe,
Christina, how far is that next park proposed? How far is that away? I mean, is it? Is, 500 yards? Okay, yeah, it's maybe 500-600 yards away, so it doesn't look like, and that's gonna be a community park, so that would have that. Okay. So I was. Perfect.
to be truthful, I thought it was probably the budget. Maybe, sometime in the future, if the neighborhood, once it's built out, asks for it, it would be done at that time. Kind of thing. So, yeah, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if there's no other, then Chair Lineback, I will move that we approve the Arista del Sol neighborhood turnkey park concept plan and authorize the general manager to instruct Woodside Homes to proceed with the development and construction of the park.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Thank you, Secretary Yearwood.
I didn't even say anything.
You didn't? Oh, it's the answer. All right, so then I guess it's Director Sloan, you get it. Okay, he won that battle. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan?
Aye.
Director Danzel?
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood?
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Chair Lineback?
Aye. Okay, thank you, and we move on to item G4.
Thank you. Item G4 is approve a name for the future neighborhood turnkey park in the Arista del Sol development. And I'd like to turn it over to Christina James.
Thank you. Staff tonight is recommending that the board of directors approve a name for the future neighborhood turnkey park in the Arista del Sol development. Earlier this evening, Clerk Andrew Saltmarsh described a recommended procedure for the naming of parks that allowed for naming of parks after people. The steps needed to form the ad hoc committee that this procedure describes will take roughly 8 months potentially, which the timing of that didn't correspond to the timing needed to construct this particular park, which is why we're bringing names before you tonight for this 2-acre Arista del Sol turnkey park. The developer and district staff worked on proposing several names for the board's consideration, and the following names are recommended. Mission Peak Park, which reflects the adjacent street. Knightsbrook Park, again, reflects the street to the south. California Poppy Park, which reflects the California state flower that will be used in this park's planting. And then Poppy Park, which is just a shorter version of the name above. And Rock Rose Park, which is a California native plant that also would be used within the plantings of that park. So there's no fiscal impact associated with selecting a name. And as in other policy matters, the board has the final discretion in park names. We're happy to answer any questions and look forward to hearing the discussion regarding the parking.
Thank you. I guess we'll start again with Director Sloan.
I do know that poppies are a flower that just pop up on their own. If, they're introduced, they come back every year, but they also disappear. Is that just a springtime bloom, Laura? Did the poppies come out of it?
It received itself, it's an annual. That
Right.
receives itself. Yeah, so it is a springtime.
But I'm thinking more prolific is the rock rose. It's more of a bush-like that grows a beautiful pinkish flower.
That's a perennial.
Yeah, it's perennial, that's, is there longer lasting blooms, is it bloom more than once? Yeah, I think that would, I'm moving toward that. I know if you do it on the streets, then it's kind of like, the California Poppy Park, I don't like it. Doesn't make sense to me, but I'm leaning towards the rock rose, that's what I'll be towards. That's much.
Director Danzel?
I'm gonna have to agree with Director Sloan. That one, the street names don't work for me. I've never liked naming parks after the streets. Because, you know, the north side feels sad because the south side of the name of the park, you know, and just turf wars, Michael, can't have that. Not that park, it's too small. I do, I do like the Poppy name, but, I have to agree with Director Sloan with it not being there year round, it will be questioned, so I'd rather go with the Rockers myself.
Secretary Yule.
Well, I was there to turnkey part. Turkey part, yeah, that's what they thought I said earlier, yeah. Yeah, the poppy ones, I don't know, they just don't work for me either. I'm not necessarily opposed to street names, but I'd be careful with naming a park after another, like I say, Mission Peak, because the other park hits that one as well. But yeah, Knightsbrook doesn't really. So I have to admit, Rock Rose would probably be what I would go with, that wouldn't be opposed to Knightsbrook.
Yes. So it seems like we have plants, native plants, and, you know, I thought the very same thing, poppies, they come up, and then all of a sudden, you don't even know they're there, because they disappear. No special trees that happen to be there too, that.
Well, we didn't want to overwhelm the board with too many decisions and too many names, just trying to keep it brief and concise.
Because I see you have a lot of shade trees and all that there. But obviously, if the park were to at least be called Rock Rose Park, which then at least people can ask, why is it called Rock Rose Park? And then you can at least have a plan, if you can see, look at the rock roses, rosewood or whatever, right? But I wondered if there were any other trees that you had there, but that seems to be the best for me, if that were.
Well, it sounds like we have a consensus, but I'm gonna throw a little wrench in it. And it's actually inspired by Director Danzel and Secretary Yearwood when you were talking about your appreciation for us going from Sierra to Valley to Coastal. Is instead of dropping the word California, you drop the word poppy and call it California Park. Just to cause trouble.
This is why she's the chair.
What other native plants are you gonna be putting in there?
Well, this time we don't have a list, but you know, we would use things like salvias and planting very similar to what you see in Lavin Park.
I like that, I think California Park. There's just too many parks that probably have California.
And to be truthful, it's a big name for a little park. Maybe someone would like to make a motion here.
Why? What would you write?
I move the board of directors approve Rock Rose Park as the name of the future neighborhood turnkey park in the Elizabeth Soul development.
Thank you, Director Sloan.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes. Roll call, please.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Director Danzel,
Aye.
Secretary Yearwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reyes,
Aye.
Chair Lamb.
Aye.
There we go. We have
Thank you.
Park. Thank you. You better make sure there are plenty of bushes so I can point them out.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna be moving on now to Board of Directors items, item H1.
Thank you. Item H1A is appoint 2 directors to the ad hoc committee for the annual general manager performance evaluation forum.
Thank you. So I'd like to be clear that this ad hoc committee, it came about because I was asked if we were going to be using the same questions for the general manager's evaluation as we had last year. And so I thought to myself, well, I don't know what was on our general manager's goals for the year. So I thought it might make sense to appoint an ad hoc committee that would look at that and bring to the board a recommendation about what questions should be on the general manager's evaluation. I don't propose, by the way, that we change the fact that all 5 directors participate in the evaluation itself. So I would like to appoint Secretary Yearwood and myself to this ad hoc committee to look at the evaluation form. Okay. Now we will move on to item H2, board members' reports and comments.
Thank you. There's no training in the last period, so we'll move on to board member reports.
Okay, and so we would hear from Director Sloan first, please.
September 28th, we all attended the total compensation study work session. We all know how that went and how tonight went, so there's no sense in discussing more there. September 29th, the Williamson groundbreaking, which was special, touching. The family was, I know, very appreciative. I look forward to the day that the ribbon is cut in that little park there. It's going to be a very special occasion, and I hope that we're all there for it. So I can get for that. The next day, October 1st, I attended, which also I think all everything did too. Michael, yeah, we're all there at the Rosemont Community Association Celebration of the Community, Rosemont Park, Community Park. It was one of the largest they've ever had there. They had, more things on their agenda, that more things like a rock climbing wall. It was just, I thought, well done. The weather was perfect. And representation of the park district there and the board that you could put your little circle color on for our study was excellent. I got some great photographs if you want to use them for promotion. I got people, try to get people where not really their faces, but just their back putting things on, so they don't have to worry about who did what. But the boards were covered. It looked like a pointless painting after a while. The next day, I attended the breakup picnic. And next day, it was on Sunday, October 2nd. And Sunday, October 2nd. And that was a nice day too. It's a little bit more low key. The Sacramento Fire was out there for a little while. And was allowing the kids and some adults to use their fire hose to knock over bottles and stuff like that. And it was well attended, and Andrea did a great job of making sure that we got some things there special for us. And then let's see. Oh, I did attend one more thing that's not on my list, and that was the October 16th, last Sunday. There was something called the Fall Fest. It was out by Sterling Park Drive. Sterling Park Drive is just before you get into Riverbend Park. You turn left into the area where the houses that back up to the Hassett property. So it was, I guess it was very much an idle thing for taxes thing, that's why the second annual thing, but it was, besides that, you had, you know, kids were painting rocks, they had, you know, wildlife exhibits, music, free, lunch was being served by the Culinary Academy of Cordova High School. Supervisor in the Foley spoke, someone in Chen Cooley spoke. And Director Daniel showed up. And it was a nice little get together of community.
Yes, I did have a question. I was wondering, I'm not familiar with the Casas property.
The Casas property is the area, Kennedy Street, dead ends, right? Where there are proposed housing development, which is gonna be, there's supposed to be a community easement that goes there that's open.
Yeah.
And it's very political, but a lot of homes are gonna be built there, and they're also gonna be going almost down to the river, homes being built, so the impact.
And is that considered a Casas property?
The Casas
Or is that
property,
going to
it's
be?
right, yeah,
Okay,
I don't know what it's, how many acres.
thank you.
But it's, so a lot of the Sarah and all the other organizations are
Concerned about her.
how much of an impact
Yeah.
on that project.
Okay. So
That's all.
much. Okay, Director Hansel.
Special board meeting on the 28th on total compensation workshop. We all attended that one. WH Williams groundbreaking. It was a long time coming for that one. I remember talking about that in my first or second year on the board. It was great to actually have things move forward, and I drive by it every day, and every day I see something new on there. So you know, rocks out there in a little formation, you know, earlier today and things like that. So that park is definitely moving along quickly. Rosemont Community Association. I've always enjoyed that event. There's been years out there where I've been asked and other directors have been asked to wrap hot dogs and help those crews out, get things done. But it was nice seeing all the different aspects of what goes on in the Rosemont community, and talk to some old friends and find out some old friends and people who really enjoy our parks are moving out of the area, unfortunately for family reasons. But and then board candidate orientation, went to that. Once again, the staff gives us the information that continues to keep the district running. They don't hold back any punches. They tell us exactly what's there. The same thing they tell us here at these, you know, meetings and every public meeting, but it's a little more into depth, what can happen, what can't happen, things like that. And there were some of us there. Not all the candidates showed up, and for whatever reason, they chose not to find out the truth about what goes on in the district, but that's on them. And then I also did, as Director Sloan said, went to the Family Fall Festival, and it was their second annual. It's right on the edge of the Castle's property. If anybody knows our district maps, that is the far west of my district. It puts my district, my current district, in Director Sloan's right up to each other, the vacant property. Vice sure is, if you were to drive down Folsom 10 years ago, there would have been a horse on the property. It's just past, what's that road called now? Yeah, Rod Road. And Tiffany West is there, and then is that property. So that's where there's, yeah. So yeah, there's proposed homes that are going in there, and there's a bike trail that there's an easement that was being talked about. Met with Ken Cooley, met with Supervisor Natoli. A lot of the community residents got some chance to speak to them and just see how they enjoy our parks, and they really seem to enjoy our parks. That was a great opportunity just to get out in the community, and love the fact that, you know, COVID for the most part is over, and we can have these events again. I miss those. I miss talking to our constituents and being able to spend time with them. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Secretary Yearwood.
I as well attended the special board meeting about total compensation. We really talked about that subject a lot, but I appreciated that opportunity to get a little more information from it, about it. I also, of course, attended the WH Williamson Park groundbreaking ceremony. That was very nice event. Russ Williamson, such a hoot. Years ago, he called me, he got my phone number somehow, and he said, I need to talk to you about my property. I said, you need to talk to our general manager, that you are, then we get you in contact. So, but it was a very well attended event. It was very nice. Well done to everybody who put that on. And I drove by it today and I was like, my goodness, like night and day. I mean, it's like, wow. So it was very impressive. Also attended the Rosemont Community Association celebration on the 1st of October. Ooh, I'm glad they have it in October now. And so much nicer weather. I think that helped them get more people out there. I think folks are getting out there again now that we're managing and living with COVID, and it was very nice. Nice to see a lot of people out there. So, but another it's a wonderful event to meet and see new folks and see some old faces. So that is all I have.
Vice Chair Reyes? Yes, the CRPD board application, I moved on it and prepared and submitted as I was asked to represent. And then we get a letter back from Mr. Duarte saying that different than CRPD, they only hold one. And since we have Jill there, which I'm very glad, you'll do great in representing us. So they didn't need me. But I did go as a team player here. The other thing is the special board meeting, total compensation study work session. I really appreciate work sessions when we're dealing with big items like this. So I just want staff to know that the challenge when we are faced with an agenda item that is quite big, we need time to be able to understand it, to listen to it, to ask questions, to move on it. And so I really appreciated a work session. The work session, it makes it a lot clearer and understandable. The Williamson's Park groundbreaking ceremony was really impressive. So many, I mean, the expectation of how many people would have shown up for Mr. Kress. And I really think that the gentleman has a lot of good stories and history to share that even his grandson hadn't heard of. So I'm really excited when the school board, when we were at the meeting, the 2x2, and Patrick was able to suggest a connection with the Williamson school, elementary school, and maybe having the school children there for the ribbon cutting and having them understand a little bit more about why their school is named Williamson and how it's connected to this park, and even the fact that that whole place was one big orchard. I mean, really, that was really interesting, and I do hope, and I think that should be the case, that he would be here with us when we do the groundbreaking in spring. And yes, I do the same thing. I drive by it almost every day, and I'm always checking to see if the trees are gone and the pathway is being marked and all that. So it's really exciting, and I believe they're excited about it. Quick question though. I did see that our sign was leaning against a tree. And I think it was off the ground, obviously, because it was in the pathway. And it was just leaning off the tree, and I thought maybe it should just be.
Well, Laura, do you want to mention
Did
that?
it go better?
We usually, after we start a party, we just throw it into the garbage, but we'll have Laura explain.
One Laura was, I do know a lot of people that live there, because there's the church there and all this, and they are excited about it. And I explained to them, that it's the park district that's putting it together, so.
Yeah, so the sign was just temporarily removed because they had to do the grading, and so they have reinstalled it, so, yeah, they reinstalled it today, as a matter of fact, and they also put up the fence around the whole property, and the grading is basically done at this point. I mean, yeah, it's going lightning fast.
Yes.
You know, our crews and park services, John Biendo and Christina James, they're really, really working hard to get that project done, so.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, by now, maybe you stuck it back in, but I can see that was temporary. Didn't want you to take it away. It was laying on there, and there was. Watch it every day. Yeah, a tree. It was leaning against a tree. The tree. No, it's not. Okay, and so the Rosemont Community Association, it just gets bigger and bigger all this time. This time I decided I'd bring my grandson, a year, about 14 months, and I forgot. I had to park, goodness gracious, how many blocks down around the corner into this place where I finally found the parking space, and I discovered I didn't have his stroller. So it was a great visit though, but he wouldn't let me put him down. Not until we were walking back to the car, but it was really nice to see. And I'm hoping that maybe even the same thing would happen over there where you had the full, it's the second year and that would be awesome. That would be really nice to have happening. As I make my walks around my village or so, I see my neighbors and I'm like, oh my God, it's been such a while. It would be really nice if we could do some of our street potlucks or so. So that's good. The board candidate orientation was done very well. I think it was very comprehensive, and yet at the same time, it was not too long. You know, and it went straight to the point, and I think it also showed that the board doesn't just sit and not do anything. But the board, being a board member is really a commitment to be available, because it's really important to be able to participate in the decision making. And how would you call this? And the focus of which way we're going. Now, the last thing I have is the bingo fundraiser. I went to take my dad to the potluck because my dad's 94, he'll be 95 this year. And he was getting bored and I didn't know what to do with him anymore. So I saw this bingo potluck. Heather did a great job. It was so nice to see all the other seniors there. And it was and my father enjoyed it. I had another dear friend of mine who used to work for the Park District, Manolita. You know her, and we went with my dad. And it was interesting. These ladies had it down pat. It's a nickel card. And I'm thinking, okay, well, here's $1. It's worth it. No, you need a nickel. So they changed it down to the nickel. And it was interesting. It was like almost an hour and a half, and then there were 16 games that were being played. And you put your nickels, and if you have 4 cards, you have 16 piles of 4 nickels. See that? It was so working, yeah. So that then every time they finish a game, they start the next one, they come and they pick the next group of 4 because you have 4 cards. It was good. It was interesting. I enjoyed it very much. And so did my brother. And it was like $10 something. Yeah. Ooh. And the presentation, the potato, it was a fundraiser for the advisory board. And I got to meet is that Barbara? Or Carol, I'm not too sure. Barbara Taylor? Barbara Taylor, right? That's right. She's the president, I think, or chair of our, and it was very well done. In fact, while I was there, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I've got these big electric cooking steamers and all that, and this great big coffee maker, and I'm like, oh, I couldn't use it. I don't want to have to use it. That means I'd have to have too many people. I'm going to give it to the senior center, and they'll have a lot more. Yeah. So anyway, in case any of you are not doing anything on a Wednesday and a Friday, from 12:30 to 2, they have a bingo at the senior center. It was really neat, and the center is looking great, and the bathrooms sort of are looking good. And so I was thrilled to be there. So Heather's doing a great job there. And I did get to see the new lady there, but I don't have her name, and I was trying to look in the newsletter, and she says, hi, hello, I'm the new whatever, but they didn't put her name. So her name is Laura. Okay, great, wonderful. Seniors were all very happy people. The whole field, the energy was so positive. So that was really nice. Thank you.
Okay, and so, you know, with the rest of the board, I did attend the total compensation work session, and I would like to, you know, echo Vice Chair Reyes's thanks for putting that on, because it was a big complicated issue, and it doesn't come up very often. And if ever, and so it wasn't like a routine item, and we really needed that deep dive into it. And so I want to thank the staff for putting that on. I also went to the Williamson Park groundbreaking ceremony. They let me speak a little bit. It was awesome to see all the people that came out and how much interest there is in that new park. And it's, well, again, it's another sort of win for the park district, I think. The Rosemont celebration of community, I went there, it was great. That's where I met Barbara Taylor. When she's the president of the senior advisory council or committee, whatever they call themselves, but she's also an avid RVer. Ooh. Well, I called her the other day because she told me, if you want to travel, call me. She's on Route 50 heading for Maryland, the loneliest road in America. And so we'll see her come Christmas. Yeah. And then the board candidate orientation, you know, I know it's, you know, sort of almost I'm not sure why I'm bothering to make this comment, but I agree. I'm disappointed that that the other candidates for the 3 positions, other than for District 2, didn't bother to try and learn more about the district. I think that's just too bad. And it was a good orientation. It was a really good overview of what we do, where our money goes, how we get our money, what the board does, you know. So I thought that was a great orientation, and I appreciate that it got put on, even though mainly people who are reasonably familiar with those things, the ones in attendance. All right, so that's the end of my report. We're going to move on to item I, comments by staff on non-agenda items.
Thank you. Item I1 is the district-wide monthly progress report for October, and I'll turn it over to General Manager Larkin.
Thank you, Shelby Golden, and I just want to thank Shelby for stepping in this evening. She's done a fantastic job so far, but we're still not over yet. But thank you, Shelby. Very well done. So going through my report, we had a really good doggy day in the park event. The addition this year of the dogs vaccine clinic was a real hit. It was a relationship that Heather had created through her Rancho Cordova leadership program. So she connected with the person who does those clinics, and now we're going to hopefully add that component to our future doggy days. So that was a nice improvement. The Williamson Park groundbreaking event I thought was great. The feedback from the family, they felt very honored and respected about the way we handled that situation. And I've had a great relationship with Mr. Williamson. I talk to him multiple times a month. I know Christina at some points have said, you know, he's looking for you. And I love talking with him. He's like my grandpa now. So I really appreciate the relationship we've grown to have with this. And I'm really excited we were able to do that for them. I am a part of the advisory board for Visit Ranch Cordova, and they had their annual meeting this past month. It's a great opportunity for us to have them cross promote our parks and especially the Mather Sports Complex, where their goal is really hotel stays. And so if we're able to attract tournaments to our Mather Sports Complex, they in turn get the benefit of having hotel stays. So the relationship is growing and building, and we're excited to expand on that. They're also promoting some of our parks, the award-winning parks, of course, that are in close proximity to the hotel, so that if you have families that are staying at the hotels, they're promoting some of the parks like Heron Landing and some of the activities at Hagen that they can go visit while they're staying here in Rancho Cordova. So that's a great relationship we're growing. The newest and greatest thing is we're starting, and I called it a podcast, but I was told it is not a podcast. It is a mini TV series that we're creating here, and it's amazing. So the mini TV series kicked off last week, and it's basically who we are and who we are as a special district, who we are as CRPD. So the first 2 episodes were filmed. Last week was the first one of who we are as CRPD. The second episode was partially filmed yesterday as who we are as a special district. We have reached out to CSDA, Dane Wadley, who is one of our representatives. He'll be filmed on Monday. So episode 2 will be completed and edited hopefully by, I would say, the end of October, hopefully. And we have 2 other stars that will be appearing in future episodes, including Matt Goodell, a fan favorite, and Jill Nuns, of course, we cannot forget about Jill. And I believe Laura Taylor is on the docket for us to really go out there hardcore and have our own TV series, explain to the district and residents who we are as a special district. So I'm really excited about it. It's a creative way to get the word out about how we are as a CRPD district and the services we provide. I appreciated your attendance at the candidate orientation. The staff did a fantastic job pulling that information together so that we could help educate candidates that are going for those elected open positions for this year. One of the greatest things that I have seen this year, thanks to Andrea, is this World Language Services program. We are in contract now. We actually submitted a contract to provide services for translation. We have used these services just recently, but it is a service that we can, as needed, give them a call. It is expanded into Spanish, sign language, Russian, everything. It's at our fingertips. We recently just used it for a recruitment and an interview. We ended up having an interview with a predominantly speaking Russian part-time staff person who's looking to get promoted into a full-time position, use these services, and happy to say that the recruitment went successful for this candidate and they ended up getting the job offer. So I'm excited about it because it also ties into our IDEA philosophy, the inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility philosophy that we're growing. And so thank you, Andrea, for finding that resource, and we're going to be excited to use it going forward into the future. We have a lot of updates with the optimized plan, as Brian has been aware. We have had 14 stakeholder meetings. We hit all areas, businesses, stakeholders that are the VIA, the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors were given a presentation on October 4th. So it's been a really great outreach effort. The next phase is starting next Monday. The Gates and Associates staff will be doing site visits to all of our parks and facilities to get an inventory list, and they'll be working with Jim and Jill and some other staff to get that tour so we can get the inventory ready and look at where we're going to data point it. Sure.
So you were able to have stakeholders, and you had the VIA and one of the stakeholders, and then you had the school districts, and how about the city?
So the city staff, we did have a stakeholder meeting with city staff. It was some good information that we received from them, mostly the development department. We did offer an opportunity for us to present to city council, and they're going to wait to a different time in order for us to give that presentation. Yeah. We talked a little bit tonight about naming the park and those future parks coming on board. We have a project being proposed at Rosemont Community Park called the Rosemont Community Poles Project. And really what it is they are poles that artists in the Rosemont community will design, paint, create, and then we're looking to install them in the butterfly garden area of the park, right, Laura? And so the application has been submitted, we're reviewing it.
We're actually still waiting for the application. They're gonna submit their certificate of insurance along with it.
Okay, so they're in process still, but we're excited that they're excited. And we can hopefully make this work to beautify Rosemont Community Park.
Are these poles and artwork and
They're like, they're kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like 6-foot poles that are painted.
Yes, and they're like, 4 by, I think they're 6 by 6s or 4 by 4. And they did basically, they do all kinds of, you know, designs and painting on both sides of them, and it'll be, they'll, once the whole thing gets going, then they will go out to different organizations within Rosemont community and invite them to do a poll, and of course, the designs will have to be reviewed by them, and we'll make sure that everything is, you know,
Sanded, no splinters, please. Yes, but thank you.
and women.
So we're excited about it. The community members at the Rosemont Community Celebration Day were really excited to tell me about it, and I was, of course, and the staff are supportive of their improvements that they want to make out there. And then lastly, Heron Landing Park binocular viewing stations are being fundraised. We have an Eagle Scout person who is interested in raising funds through a GoFundMe page to raise funds for 2, I believe, binocular stations that overlook the wetlands area at Heron Landing. So their fundraising efforts will close at the end of October. And from there, we will see how the Welly did, and we'll look to hopefully supplement what that is to get that going and installed. And with that, I will turn it over to the amazing Jill Nuns, our Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You guys have talked about a lot of things I was going to talk about this evening, so I'll try to make it short and sweet. Lots going on in the marketing communications department. As you can see, lots of things have been highlighted over the past month. But Shelby Golden is now our new member of leadership, Rancho Cordova. Are you class number 16?
Yes.
Congratulations. Good luck. We're excited to hear what your project's going to be. So she's part of that leadership, Rancho Cordova. Have fun doing that. Cordova Golf Course on September 13th. We celebrated the Golf Course Superintendent Day. We did a post on Facebook and Instagram to thank BJ Singh for all of his hard work at the golf course. So that was a lot of fun. And then also on October 2nd, we have a PGA professional instructor, Denise, who hosted the first session of a new junior girls golf clinic at Cordova Golf Course. It was very successful. So I'm really, glad to see the variety of different programs that we're bringing to the golf course for clinics, for lessons, for all people, which is just amazing. That's just going to help us continue to grow, our clientele as well as the interest in golf. We also have a first tee program, so we're just spreading it, throughout all the different types of programs that we can. So I'm happy that we're able to do that. The aquatic season is finally over. Pool is going to sleep for a little while until the high school comes back in February to use the pool. We had a very successful year again at all of our pools, the Big Village Community Pool, the White Rock Splash Park, and of course the Cordova Community Pool. Director Float, I did want to let you know that this summer we actually did host a water polo camp. I think we had close to 8 to 10 participants. So we are starting to introduce water polo today, what the high school was, the Cordova High School was letting us know is that unfortunately, whatever division that they're in, they don't actually have water polo yet in the division that they are a part of. And so we will continue as a district to offer water polo and hopefully someday grow it to where we can have some mini leagues. But it's going to be up to the high school whether or not they change divisions or however that works. I'm not really sure how it works here in California. And so it's on their radar, but if they can, figure out a different division and that division has water polo, then perhaps they'll create a water polo team. So, yeah. And then youth and teen programs and sports, gosh, another busy month in youth and teen sports. You can read all about it there in your board packet. For athletic field and facility rentals, we hosted our annual Midnight Madness softball tournament. This is an all world sports tournament that they put on every single year. It's basically 48 hours of tournament experience that the players just play from Friday night till Sunday. It's a pretty fun event, so we're happy to be able to host them. They enjoy playing out there at the major sports complex. And then we also had a company, Verge Electric, hosted a one-day cornhole charity tournament in the major sports complex on our synthetic multi-use soccer field, and over 150 people were in attendance to support this charity event. And then all those proceeds benefited children with cancer. So we're happy to be able to host them at the major sports complex. You've kind of gone through all the community events, so I won't highlight all the community events that you've all attended over the last month. Parks is busy, continuing to do lots of irrigation repairs. Our team and staff just do an amazing job making sure that our irrigation systems are all in check and that we're not wasting water, especially when we do have a break in the system. And it's also fall fertilization and aeration seasons. They have been busy. Fertilizing, prepping for, the fall and the winter, and making sure that our parks are going to be nice and healthy for the spring. We all are hoping for that really rainy winter, which would be super helpful for us. We did finally get parts in for 2 playgrounds that have been sitting idle. The playground was open. We just had parts of those amenities that were closed. One was at Prospect Hill Park. So we were able to get that playground back up and running 100%, as well as the Rosemont Community Park. We had slides down there, and now that playground is open 100%. Playgrounds have been challenging to get those parts in. It's been kind of crazy, but Jim and his staff are doing a great job of staying on top of it and just ordering the parts when we need them to get them in. With that, I will cover the Board of Directors special event invitation. There's lots going on in the next couple of months. This Friday is the Whistle Stop Candidate Forum, the Rancho Cordova Luncheon. It's hosted by the RC Chamber and the CCC here at City Hall. It's this Friday again at 11:30 a.m. There's the BRCA General Meeting, the Rancho Cordova Library on Tuesday, October 25th at 6:30. Over at the Neil Orchard Senior Activity Center, we have the Halloween Bash on Wednesday, October 26th at 11:30. And then our big Halloween at Hagen that we always host, annual event at the Hagen Community Park on Saturday, October 29th from 3 to 6 p.m. We have our annual Veterans Day celebration, November 9th at 11:30 at NOSAC. Then our big Thanksgiving feast, Wednesday, November 16th at 11:30. And then our Winter Wonderland, which is another community event. We've changed the name of it. It used to be Breakfast with Santa, but we've expanded to have it be a Winter Wonderland. Try to be a little bit more inclusive for our community. And that's going to be on Saturday, December 3rd from 9 to 11. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to item J, informational items.
Thank you. Item J1 is articles, correspondence, and public outreach, and item J2 is your calendar.
Okay, thank you. I think that means we have come to the end of the agenda, so I am going to adjourn this meeting to the next regular board meeting on Wednesday, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. The time is 9:09.
Job, IT, shall be.
Yeah, it's really better. So,